For centuries, boys were top of the class. But these days, that's no longer the case. A new study by the OECD, a club of mostly rich countries, examined how 15-year-old boys and girls performed at reading, mathematics, and science. Boys still score somewhat better at maths, and in science the genders are roughly equal. But when it comes to the students who really struggle, the difference is stark. Boys are 50% more likely than girls to fall short of basic standards in all three areas. Researchers suggest that doing homework set by teachers is linked to better performance in maths, reading, and science. Boys, it appears, spend more of their free time in the virtual world. They are 17% more likely than girls to play collaborative online games than girls every day. They also use the internet more. Third, peer pressure plays a role. A lot of boys decide early on that they are just too cool for school, which means they're more likely to be rowdy in class. Teachers mark them down for this. In anonymous tests, boys perform better. In fact, the gender gap in reading drops by a third when teachers don't know the gender of the pupil they are marking. So what can be done to close this gap? Getting boys to do more homework and cut down on screen time would help. But most of all, abandoning gender stereotypes would benefit all students. Boys in countries with the best schools read much better than girls. And girls in Shanghai excel in mathematics. They outperform boys from anywhere else in the world. Over the last few years, incorporating mindfulness applications in school environments has attracted interest, and several research studies have been conducted to evaluate the effects of mindfulness on learners' well-being and academic performance. Since teachers are the frontline implementers, they must be used in assessing the effectiveness of these tools. These views provide useful insights on how these applications affect the classroom, student conduct and academic achievement. A brief assessment of the views of teachers shows that they have a favorable attitude towards the applications of mindfulness. Teachers note that all of these tools enhance students' emotional self-awareness and ability to handle stress. According to the American Psychological Association (APA) poll in 2021, 76% of teachers reported that their students' anxiety and stress reduced when using mindfulness applications regularly. This reduction in stress not only assists in improving the overall climate of the classroom, but also helps in improving students' abilities to complete tasks that are academically related.
Teachers from cultures in which the practice of mindfulness was not valued would need to be sold the benefits of practicing it more convincingly, as it shapes their ability to give them fully to the practice. Additionally, the teacher's view is based on the student's response to the mindfulness exercises. It is these teachers that have reported the positive change in the student's behavior, or their ability to self-regulate their emotions, or their academic performance, as a consequence of espousing mindfulness. These results support their postulations and suggest additional application of various forms of mindfulness treatments. One example of this would be that, when a teacher sees students be more calm and attending in class after the practices, the teacher probably will have a positive view on the practices. This reinforces the loop because if teachers believe that mindfulness is useful, watching it work well fills their minds with positive experiences.
In 2015 I traveled to Colombia to prepare for the first ever prevention study in Alzheimer's disease. A simple blood test could detect the mutation. If the study is successful, patients could be identified and treated before the onset of symptoms. But what about the rest of the world with Alzheimer's disease? Do the different genetic and environmental risks? What about patients like my friend David? Today's technologies, smartphones, wearables, online patient communities and online assessment tools can be used to gather data in an unprecedented global scale. With enough data, we can begin to understand the emerging genetics and this disease much the way Dr. Lopra did in Colombia. When that happens, we can begin to understand your risk for Alzheimer's disease. The biological pathways that are the most important in you and most importantly, when to begin treatment. Now it's the time that patients, family members, physicians, scientists and drug developers all have a role to play in defeating Alzheimer's disease.